That's, yeah, he's from, New York, and this is the, Army Ski Group.
Okay, today is Wednesday, October 1st already, 2025. The time is now 6 p.m. We are going to open this council public forum. So we are here to hold a public forum and allow for the presentation of two community members, Arthur Leskowich and Stephen Topaz, on the future potential use of the wastewater treatment secondary lagoon. As background, the city has been exploring repurposing the secondary lagoon area for more than a decade. There have been several names for this project, with the most recent being the Central Waterfront Redevelopment Project. The city is in its earlier stages of repurposing this project and is gathering information and consulting with experts in the field to identify the best ways to move forward with this project safely and in the best interest of the city. Art and Stephen have been very engaged personally with the status of this lagoon and the potential repurposing of the lagoon. Mr. Topaz regularly speaks about the lagoon at city council work sessions during visitor comments in the short time period allotted. When asked, Mr. Topaz was interested and open to having a longer time period to present information he has been gathering over the years. Mr. Leskowich has spent considerable time gathering information on this topic also. As a council, we decided that it would be beneficial for the city and the community to provide Art and Stephen a more extended period of time to present their information to the city council and community to hear their perspectives about the lagoon area. As a council, we decided that providing this opportunity be one of the many pieces of this puzzle to help the city decide how to move forward. We anticipate after this public forum, the city will provide a follow-up presentation using the information it heard from the questions asked to provide the community with additional information about how the city will continue to explore and move this repurposing project forward. So the format of today's forum will be as follows. Art and Stephen will present their information uninterrupted. At the end of their presentation, there will be a time for questions and comments. To allow Art and Stephen to get through the materials, we ask that you hold and write down your questions until the end of the presentation. And this public forum will end promptly at 6:55 since we do have a regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Now, I'm honored to turn this time period over to Art and Stephen. If you guys want to come up here and start your presentation, we appreciate you being here.
I'm going to start off. Art's going to take over fairly quickly. There's a, don't worry about the slide that goes before this. This business of the lagoon repurposing started off in 2014 with John Walt's presentation to the Portland Harbor of where to put their toxic waste. That's the beginning of the story as far as St. Helens. Art's going to tell you some of the words that get to be involved that we have to worry about, because a lot of the words have a technical meaning, not an English meaning.
And the one that we use all the time is toxic waste. I prefer to use the contaminated sediments. It is definitely going to be proposed. And let me preface first, I think most of this stuff today, going to sort of have informal sharing of information. Most of the information that I'm going to share with you, you guys have seen already. This is from the website. You've been to meetings already several times in 24 earlier this year. And this information was, a lot of it presented to you, but kind of confusing. And some of the information is thousands of pages. So you've got a lot on your plates to read and learn about these issues. I myself have been in the environmental business for the majority of my life and in cleanup and a variety of different things. We can talk more about that later on as my credentials if you're interested. But council has changed over the years. So you guys are relatively new to this project. Does go back 10 plus years. We've been talking about it and even sent a letter to EPA saying, hey, we want the sediments from Portland Harbor. And we do have a problem out here. I'm not going to go into the entire long history, the sordid history of why we ended up with this property. that is contaminated, that others contaminated. But these are all questions that I have. Steve and I have spoken over the years, and some other community members also got very discouraged and even scared about sharing their concerns and didn't want to be part of this battle anymore. But it seems to be a battle. And from day one, the only thing that we've discussed was turning that lagoon into a landfill. We've never looked at any other alternatives. Typically, when you look at an environmental cleanup, you say, what if we do nothing at all? Or what if we clean it up to 100% or somewhere in between? So you have costs and benefits and different options. And all the publications that we've received, all the meetings that John and Mal Foster, our consulting firm that is involved with this, has been to many meetings, many tens of thousands of dollars, outreach to other organizations, all within mostly the state, division of state lands, things like that. But have we gone out to private, to the tribes, to the public health department? All those things I question and I ask and I'm not seeing. So back to some of the more basics as far as the technology of what's going to happen. Steve's dug into a lot of that, tremendous amount of information. That again, we're going to sort of slam through this so that we can have some interactive conversation. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is where we talk about even funding. This is very interesting. This is at much higher levels than the folks in this room. This work has been in the governor's office for years. Brad Witt, when he was our representative, I sat down and I spoke with him and I even asked him about that bill where we're asking for $1.54 million. I said, why do you think this is a good idea? He didn't know. He pointed to downtown. They think it's a good idea. So again, I'm not sure who's running the show. Why is it that Portland Harbor and the city of Portland and the state have such an interest in sending their contaminated sediments from Portland Harbor our way? Now, again, it's been stated it's not going to be just those sediments. There's lots of other sediments, but the problem is clean sediments can be open water disposed. You don't need to fill in, or you have beneficial use. There's also, Steve and I talked about, there's very numerous levels and ways of measuring contaminants, depending on an agency and depending on what the ultimate uses are. So again, what might be harmful and not appropriate in one dredging situation might be acceptable in another dredging situation. So and a lot of people use the term toxicity, hazardous waste. That's a difficult situation. We're not going to be putting hazardous wastes into the proposed lagoon landfill. Hazardous wastes are very specific in how they're identified. A lot of it has to do with the process, how they were generated, and then there's testing that's involved also. But bottom line is, yes, hazardous waste, true hazardous waste sediments that fail the TCLP test, the leachability test, must go to a landfill. That is what they call a RCRA or a Class C landfill. That's for those waste. Class D is a standard municipal landfill. And what we're talking about here is neither of those. This is a very specialty type of landfill. And again, typically never would be constructed in the site that we're currently at. So there's a cleanup that we have to do that is out there that we know has been contaminated for years. And how we got here, I'm not even really sure anybody could put in a really good step-by-step process. Where's Boise Cascade, or now their Office Max? Where are they at in their responsibility for cleaning up that lagoon? And those are questions I continue to ask, and nobody can answer the question. Why aren't we pushing this with all the money that we've spent? All we've done was spend that money on looking at the lagoon and turning it into a landfill. And a lot of it was based, all those studies, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, not addressing the fact that there might be other ways that we can generate revenue from that wonderful waterfront property. And some of that I will touch on as we go through these slides. So that's why I think we're looking at the cleanup, we don't have money to do the cleanup. Do we not? I don't know. Where are those other responsible parties that made that contamination years ago in the cleanup process? But yeah, we want to take it upon ourselves to manage a project that we're not always really good at managing projects, and have somebody bring in additional contaminated sediments with some toxicities associated with them in a mixture from all over, mostly Portland Harbor. And we'll turn that into a landfill that will always be a landfill. There will never be anything else. It won't get cleaned up. It'll be entombed there. And bottom line, it's a little bit over a mile from our drinking water intake. Most pioneers, or anybody that knows, if you have a farmer, you don't put your outhouse above your drinking water source. And that's exactly what we have here. And that's the way we always done things. But things even got more strange and difficult as time goes on. Our contaminants of concern, and one that just is currently on our radar right now, is firefighting foam. And that's something that is one of these forever chemicals, similar to sort of PCBs or dioxins. They take a very, very long PCBs and dioxins we have out there now. Now we know we have PFAS also. So when let's go to the next slide. So this is the history
Okay, I'm gonna
of
take over now.
the industrial.
And he's gonna come back and he's got better pictures of what he's just talking about. This is the piece of ground we're talking about. This is the Frogmore Slough. There's a number of things that are critically important that you all understand. You see the railroad, it's on pilings, 14 feet above the water level. The water level is equal to the river level. At the end of the railroad, where it kind of goes out of sight, there's actually a lift bridge that allowed the barges from the river to come into the quarry to load. So we know that the water is fairly deep, at least enough to handle barges. We also see at this end, the mill is dumping in a huge amount of wood waste. I don't know how you best described it, but it's really bad. You also notice that a great deal of the water is on the river side of the railroad. And the reason we're pointing out some of these physical facts is a lot of this stuff gets covered over, but is still there. We're going to keep worrying about what's still there. Now, you see kind of behind a little water tank behind the smokestack, there's a little stream. It's no-name stream. I want you to remember that piece of ground. We're going to go into that. And also look at the smokestack. Smokestack was put up, it's on good ground, high enough so the smells and odors of the mill went over the top of the town. Right now, the building limits would not allow a smokestack that tall. We found that out when the rubber reclamation plant. Now let's have the next picture. This is the lagoon, basically 2010. You can see the railroad tracks. You can most easily discern by the where the trestle is. The trestle now does not open. The levee is 25 feet higher than the railroad. The levee is 25 feet higher than the railroad. The water level in the now cooling pond, the lagoon, is only a few feet below the top. Now that levee was added to, for some reason they had to add 2.5 feet to it. But at one time, it overtopped. Again, you'll see there's a bunch of white and a Y right in that area. When it overtopped, it was noted that the membrane, the PVC membrane, had slipped. We'll get into that. But I want you to realize that that's the area we're going to be talking about. Again, notice there's no water between the railroad and the river. There's a lot of filling in. The where the barges were for the sewer plant is now where the sewer plant is. Next slide, please. We've pointed out where that little notch is. It's a slot in the rock that's full of sand. The first time Old Forster drilled, they went down 200 feet, didn't find the bottom. Second time they sent the core down 283 feet, and they found the bottom. That hole is as deep as 4 county buildings. It's not a trivial canyon. But more important is, it's a good cross section. You can see where the levee is. It's in the middle of the picture, a little bump. The railroad's on the flat of the bump. You have the river level and you have the level of the lagoon. Okay. You can see we put a lot of fill in there. You also see some funny lines. And then one of the things we know that on the other side, on the river side of the levee, the ground isn't real good. And looking at this, the ground as far as solid isn't real good. And the geologist will tell us that there's a problem with it, and I'll explain a little bit of that. One of the things that the test did, they sent a core down it from the railroad, 15 feet. Basically from the top of the railroad down to where the river level is. And let's take a look at some of the data. Next slide, please.
Okay, before we leave that slide, if I can interrupt.
Yes.
So again, just to give you perspective, this is where the levee is, right? And then these are all contaminated sediments in the lagoon. Shallower up in this end, and remember that the presentation given in March. They talked about sections of the lagoon that were deeper. This is the excavated area originally when I think they mined the basalt from the wall. I don't know if it's an exact cross section. But this is again where we have contaminated sediments, a lot of contaminated sediments. This is the liner that apparently we've lost. I know we would have to then talk about turning this whole thing into a new landfill with this substrate. Very unconsolidated silty soils, that is, and when the big one hits, is this berm and railroad going to keep that contaminated sediments in place in the landfill? I think, does that make a little bit more sense? That's a difficult cross section.
Yeah, this is one of the things we almost need a whole hour to discuss. Now, we talked about putting this membrane in. We put a PVC membrane under down the side of the levee across the bottom. We didn't come up the side where the cliff is. Because of what was in the slough before, it was generating gas and actually floated the membrane up, and our city worker shot holes in it so it would sink. So now the membrane's laying on the bottom, and with the recent testing, we filled that membrane with a lot of big holes called cores. Okay, let's take a look at what we're looking at in these core holes just outside of the levee, riverside, 15 feet down from the railroad. We have a data sheet. This data sheet has a number of things that you understand. Gives the date that it was done, gives the location, and it gives the time of test. And the time of test, we're going to do 5 tests in 20 minutes, and a test is basically 5-6 components. One is pH, acid level, one is temperature, one is turbidity. We're trying to find out what kind of water is underneath the ground beside the levee. And we see in the period of time that these values are changing, not much, but one of the things that's important from a question point of view is the temperature they say there is about 58 degrees in this particular thing. It changes up and down, 58 degrees Fahrenheit. It's recorded on a sheet of paper as 14.5 degrees C. Groundwater typically is 52 degrees Fahrenheit, not 58. Groundwater temperature does not change, it stays solid. And if you check your well outside in your house, temperature, pH, and things like that, don't you? This is changing. One of the things that is not on this sheet is the river level. So you would think just beside the river, you would like to know what the river level is if it's going to affect your level. Now, I mentioned that the membrane, the PVC membrane floated and they shot it full of holes. It's noted in a box. You're looking at right here, about 2/3 of the way down, that the water coming off the tests is effervescent. In other words, it's gas, it's busy. So On the outside of the lagoon, there's fizzy water. There was this gas being generated from below coming up. Next slide, please. This is the same data, although, well, that was done in 23. This is done in 19. This test isn't 20 minutes long. This is 2.5 hours on 2 days. But what we see here is we see the temperature and the pH, these are changing quite radically. Some of the temperatures here are approaching 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a long way from 52. Something's moving. The point that is not on this, or the first one, is the river height. And if you go back, and I know a number of people around here go fishing and look at the tide charts, you see every time the tide is coming up or going down, there's a lot of change in these data. When the tide is steady, full tide or black tide, and it's not changing, or it's not changing in 20 minutes, there's no change. So the river is affecting this, which means something's coming and going and making the ground unstable. Next slide, please. Now, as Art talked about, we spent a lot of money on this. One of the things is that the temperature here, it's written in C, it says it's 67 degrees C. 67 degrees C is 150 degrees, it'll burn your skin. Okay, maybe it's just a mistake. Well, even so, that's basically 68 degrees, still very hot from the groundwater. So we've got some problems underneath the ground that's bothering us. The fact that we've got changes, it's bothering us. It shouldn't be changing. So we haven't got a good picture of what's underneath this lagoon. Next slide, please. Now, again, public data. This tells us where St. Helens is located. And the 1 foot is what we consider mean water level, low water level above sea level. Here it's a foot. But what we also have here is the flood stage. At one time, and this is now the Vanport, the flood stage was 27 feet above this. The reason I bring this up is one of the questions and one of the dangers of having a lined receptacle next to a river is that the river comes up above the 100-year flood stage, that liner is going to float. Flood stage is 14 feet, actually 14 and a half feet, 15 feet. And yet we're quite a bit above that. And people will remember around here, oh, you don't want to build the apartments down there because it's going to flood. Oh, no. And the apartments flooded. That was in 96. The flood stage was only 23 foot at that time. In 64, though, it was 24 feet. In 56, it was 23 feet. In 1950, it was 21 feet. The river around here floods. Putting something that's going to be a boat or a line pole that's going to be in flood stages every 5 or 10 or 20 years is not a good idea. Next slide. It's Art's turn to tell you about what's happening out front.
And again, another good point, this will all hopefully tie together these pieces of the puzzle. As we said, there's a problem with the liner in the lagoon. It's leaking. So again, contaminants that we know that are in the lagoon are leaving the lagoon, dumped by the pipe, the permitted NPDES discharge. That permit was just renewed after 20 years.
What's that again? Sorry. What was that? Say that one more time, that permit that you said.
Yeah, and National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, federal permit implemented by the state. We didn't have one. They renew every 5 years, but we didn't have one renewed by the state of Oregon in over 20. And it's been pretty much established. I don't know if anybody here did any reviews on that when it came out. I think our engineering group did, but that was about it. And our wastewater plant, John, I think, had a few comments. I and Steve commented, not too many other people. Not a lot of interest in a wastewater treatment plant, it seems. But it is old technology. It cannot meet current standards. And since that permit was issued, the PFAS, these forever chemicals, Teflon based, that were now regulating in our drinking water at parts per trillion. Several years ago, we couldn't even measure down to that area, but now it's been proven that they're concerned that they're affecting our health. at those kind of levels. And we know it's leaving the lagoon. So what's leaving the lagoon? This is Sand Island. I don't know the date on this picture. I got a follow-up picture here, but
It's prior to 1960.
okay. This is Multnomah Channel. This is the Columbia River. So a little bit more muddy. But if we go to the, and just to give you perspective, Dalton Lake is, I believe, down here. And that's where our intake for our drinking water is, just off the map right there. So what you're seeing here is pretty much the two channelizers, what we call laminar flow. Next slide, please.
Well, we'll just hold that one slide a minute.
Okay.
Go back if you could, Kathy. There's one thing you notice. Right there, there's a notch in the river and there's a kind of rectangular piece. That's the courthouse.
Right there, yeah.
That's the courthouse. So this is what's in front of St. Helens.
All right, what we have here, wastewater treatment plant, aerated lagoon. I got this right off of Google Earth. You go in there and type in the history. This is approximately 1990. Tip of Sand Island, there we had active barges, our floating logs out there, an active plant at the time. And right here, the line, that is our, at least in 1990, where that discharge was for our wastewater treatment plant coming from the lagoon. Pipe that comes out underneath the Multnomah Channel. And I was told they moved it further out into the Multnomah River because you get better dilution. Dilution to solution to pollution. And that's what an MPDES permit is. It's a permit to pollute. If we weren't discharging pollutants, we wouldn't need a permit. That permit monitors and controls and oversees and gives us limits. So that is the discharge from the lagoon at that point source, end of pipe. And you can see where it flows with very little mixing. And again, right towards our rainy wells, which is our drinking water collection units that are in the Columbia River. Next slide, please. So why is this also a concern? This was front page news back in 2020. And I suggest you all go back and look at that video. It's in the meeting minutes online at the 34-minute mark. This is a presentation given by Wilsonville Concrete Products. That again, my problem is process. How do we get to this point? They were going to bring in barges and moor them on our waterfront. Great economic use of our waterfront. What's the problem with that? There's a little bit of contamination out there. And apparently nobody knew that. I don't know how did John, your signature was on the application to the Division of State Lands to change that barge area for logs to more transportation barges and tugboats. Next slide, please. This was front page news, but this is the area. And I wrote a letter to the council and to John, and it was an email actually. And I says, hey, you're going to place that new barge unloading area. Well, let's back up. Do we have contamination on the waterfront? Yes, we do. There's documented contamination in multiple reports from years ago. And that pink area that you see right there, stop, then we got the purple and the blues. That pink area right there, keep in mind, that's the clarifier. Use that as a point of reference. Here's the barge offloading facility. The highest area of contamination possible. Over 1,000 times the magnitude of allowable exceedance. This map happens to be for,
I think this is PCB.
this is PCB, yeah, 1,000 times the exceedance was PCBs. Next slide, please. This is again, the application to the Division of State Lands to sublease that parcel. This is all of our leased land from the Division of State Lands. There's parcel that was going to go to Wilsonville Concrete. Next slide, please. And you'll see in each of the cases, some of our highest contamination is right there. And I asked John, I said, why not move that barge unloading facility downriver or upriver? We still got lots of property upriver. Move to somewhere that's not as contaminated. That did not happen. The morning that the Division of State Lands guy was going to rubber stamp that application, I spoke with him. He didn't know anything about the contamination that was out there. So I just suggested that he call the Department of Environmental Quality and they talk. Again, problem with process. Our agencies don't talk to each other. So DSL is not talking to DEQ. We, I think, are giving, John, how do we not know that that's contaminated with all the money that we spent on consultants? And this is easily acceptable public data. How can we bring it upon ourselves to think that we can stir this shit up, excuse me, by a commercial company and let this stuff go downriver? We know that needs to be cleaned up. But there's no fish advisory signs out there from Oregon Health Department. I talked to those folks. They didn't know anything about it. They got fisher advisories all the way up the Willamette River from the Sauvie Island Bridge all to where Portland Harbor is, and oftentimes in multiple languages. But I've been down here seeing people fish in the shoreline. There's not a sign to be seen. I said, are you going to keep those fish? And they're fishing not for salmon, or they're fishing for native fish, brim and bass. And these reports that, again, are on file that somebody has done states very specifically the hazards associated with the fish consumption, but nobody else knows about that. Next slide, please. So again, process, pre-treatment. There's no pre-treatment program that we have. This is the source of PFAS, one that I've stumbled across. Firefighting foam. And it's coming from our firefighting facility and it's being dumped into our system. Our system doesn't treat it. And again, it discharges to the river. Now we know it's in the sediments. We know it's being discharged for well over 20 some years. In my opinion, what I know about our drinking water system does not filter out PFAS. So are we even testing for it at this point in time? But why do we not have a pre-treatment program with our industrial users and the fire department? See all those plastic ones out there? I spoke with the fire chief 2 years ago. I pointed out that problem to him. Those were all busted and broken, made some suggestions on a cost-effective way for him to dispose of that. And that's as far as it went. Stuff disappeared. So I suggest that you, the city, I did not put out any kind of requests as far as public information, left and right, whatever. The city should figure out what the hell's been going on with the fire department for the last 20 plus years and where did all that PFAS go? Was it disposed of properly or was it dumped into the sewer system that goes directly to our lagoon? How did they dispose of that? And if a slug of that came through, so we're talking about minor stuff over the years that had been discharged from all their fire training. What if they got rid of all that stuff at one time? We're just going to dump it all the drain. And it goes through our treatment plant and it may or may not be picked up in sampling and it may or may not be picked up in our drinking water intake. Next slide, please. Got to tear through this. Drinking water wells, we've had problems before. We're not going to spend too much time, but the Rainy well is the design on the left there, and that's on the website. You guys should all be familiar with that. And then the tank on the right is the water tank storage, and we've had a lot of problems with that system also. So I'm asking, are we sustainable? So this goes back to not again, wanting a landfill or not, or a funded alternative, but protecting our drinking water source. Very vulnerable drinking water source there in the river. At one point in time in the past, it came from, I believe, up the hill, Salmonberry Reservoir. I don't know if that has the capacity. When I asked about why we've left that as a source or a backup, nobody's. It's now recreational. We can't drink from there. We do have one backup well over at Bayport. I don't think it's been maintained or tested or managed properly. So that's, again, worried about our drinking water system. Next slide, please. Steve, you got a lot of stuff here on cancer rates. We have probably about 5 minutes to talk about that.
Okay, yeah. The circle here shows Columbia County we're number 2 in the state. There is a county at this time. This is NIH data. Not only that, if you go up further, we're even higher than the US. This is countywide. There was a New York Times article that said within a mile and a half of a waste dump, the cancer rate's 1.5 times what it normally is in the whole area. That gives you another part of our health problem. We've got we're high in the cancer for the stuff that's around here, but we're gonna add to it if we use this as a toxic waste dump. Next slide. We talk about the thing failing. This is a picture of one of the fly ash pits on the Tennessee River that failed. And it dumped a whole lot of stuff into the river. When we have an earthquake, it's, the geologists say our levee's gonna go. That's what it's gonna look like when we get done. Next slide. Okay, we talk about moving stuff here. To give you an idea about moving stuff, we're talking about, and this is when we started out with the possibility of moving the Portland Harbor here. They got 8 million cubic yards of stuff to move out here. We could move it to Hillsborough. Hillsborough, their pit is not licensed or permitted to take the level of this. But if you start looking at, okay, we're going to 10 years, well, that means 800,000 cubic yards a year. Okay, but you only can move stuff out of the river because of the fishing requirements 4 months a year. So you got to remove all of that in a third of the year. And you got to get it here. Well, again, simple math. I've got a 10-yard truck or a 15-yard truck. I've got 800,000 cubic yards I got to move this year. How many trucks do I need? You end up with a lot of trucks. Okay, if you got a lot of trucks, then you got to cover 29 miles or 30 miles. How many trucks an hour have got to leave to do that? You end up, you're having a truck loaded with contaminated waste leaving Portland basically every 7.5 minutes, which means a truck is arriving here in St. Helens every 7.5 minutes. Unloading toxic waste isn't like saying you just don't back up and dump it. It's got to be brought in, signed in, and it's got different levels. You've got different places to dump it. It also means you got to get rid of a truck every 7.5 minutes. So Old Portland Road's seeing a 10-yard truck in and out of there every 3 minutes. Well, this is assuming that the trucks are traveling 30 miles an hour from Portland to here. Imagine a truck entering Scappoose during rush hour every 7.5 minutes. They're going to be happy with us. Now, if you board it by barge, you need 5 barges a day. You got to unload it. Well, we just found out you can't get a barge next to the ground because the water's contaminated. But let's say you can. You've got to get 5 barges in here a day, unload them. Problem. You can't put stuff fresh out of the river into a pit. You've got to dry it and do some stuff to it. And any logs and all that have to be removed from it. So you only can put the contaminated material, not the other river stuff. And so we're going to need a sorting yard, which we haven't talked about. That's another part of it. So we're now having to store a bunch of stuff so we can do the sorting and do the drying before we put it in there. So we've got piles of contaminated waste waiting to be processed here. But you also got to get rid of those 5 barges. If you call up one of the like Force, they'll tell you to run a tugboat $3,800 an hour to run. So we're starting to talk about costs. Let's have the next slide now. This is kind of, according to what was said, we could get so many dollars a ton or a cubic yard, and which would bring in $120 million to St. Helens over a 10-year period. When you start taking off some of the costs of moving it, and all of a sudden you've got $110,000, $110 million worth of costs, which means you get maybe $8 million over 10 years. But we didn't figure into these numbers the problem of building the equipment here, the dryers. So all those costs are not involved in this. This is just make-believe manpower and what they say. So $800,000 a year doesn't sound like a good idea. Next slide. This is kind of where the problem got started. This is the beginning of the Clean Water Act. It gets an atomic call writing that the Columbia River and the Willamette River had become a sewer. Let you read that yourself. There's a good article about how we forgot to take care of ourselves. Next slide. Art, it's your turn.
So as we're approaching the end here, again, bottom line, lots of concerns and whatever else with turning the lagoon into a landfill. But this is the summary, most recently of the geology, and we should have probably highlighted, but the native alluvial silt soils are highly compressible. Placement of new fill could result in significant total and differential short-term primary and long-term secondary settlements. They need to be considered as a plan. This, I think, was presented in that March meeting that you probably were all at, that Mo Foster did for us. And they do really good as far as getting monies from grants and things like that for us. Their studies have all basically said more work needs to be done. We don't know, and then there's also been some other economic studies, things like that, yeah, we've got more money and commend John on getting this information, all this information with the grant money, FEMA money, EPA money. But we don't have anything, I think, sustainable to continue on with these studies. So that's where I said, now we have $400,000, I believe, in that last batch of money that was fingerprinted for making application for this landfill. So my question is, are we still going down this path? Are you going to spend that $400,000 on a permit application? Are we going to do more studies? Are we going to bring this nonsense to a stop and start looking at some other alternatives to do something with that property, get it cleaned up, maybe spend some of this money on attorneys to have the property cleaned up so we can bring in barge companies and make use of that very valuable expensive. Can we maybe clean up that lagoon somewhat to our own abilities and put in floating homes, or maybe a light commercial shipyard or dry docks? So many things that could be done, but all I've seen in over 10 years is landfill. And we're gonna miss the window on that.
Yeah.
We've got other established commercial landfills that are upriver. Hazardous waste will go to Arlington. We just met the gentleman in the commission.
Yeah.
Wasco County is really pushing. They want the barges from the sediments to go upriver and they're looking at some transportation problems also. But we're way behind the 8 ball now as far as being competitive for getting those sediments. You may disagree with me, John. I don't know, but I'm asking the question. Let's go to the next. I'm sorry, go back to that one there. Yeah, limitations there. So what we're talking about here is opinions. And that's what we got. This is right there from the Mo Foster report. They said, hey, we've done this work. Things may change. We're not responsible for other changes that might happen. So no harm against them not mentioning the PFAS problems, because prior to just a couple of months ago, the PFAS wasn't really regulated, but now it is. But never have they mentioned our drinking water intake or the firefighting foam in the system. So let's go on to the next one then. So who's in charge? John, do we come to you now? Because I'm going to be coming to you a lot more. And the silliness has got to stop now. If you've got the staff and the time and you can deal with me, but who else in your shop? Because I talk to other people, they don't really know what's going on. They don't know what the plan is. Where are we going? And how is this money going to be spent? Do we have anybody else that we can talk to? I know Mohammed doesn't really have a whole lot of input, I don't think, into the lagoon or those. He's working on engineering and variety of things like that. So the other thing is the planning board. I had addressed why is not this is something that the planning board should have been involved in day one intimately, and I get the impression that they're not involved in it or had been not involved in it at all. So we're coming up on our 45 minutes. Do we have time for that? Do you have anything you want to?
The one slide that we should have just been irk them a little bit. We also asked who on the council is connected with this project. Raise your hand. Okay.
I mean, we're all connected to this project at this point.
Okay. Well.
We're all engaged at this point. That's why you guys are here and you're talking
Okay.
to us.
Oh, good. It's now question time. You got questions?
Well, I'll start off. So first of all, I'm hoping obviously to have the second follow-up so that we can get answers to all the questions that you guys presented, because I think that that's fair, right? There might be some additional stuff that like there's a response to that council's not privy to at this point. We don't have the knowledge and has not been shared with you or the public. So I'm sure that we're going to be taking copious amounts of notes and be able to bring you guys back and then do another presentation. So hopefully you guys will be acceptable for that. One of the questions that I have right off the bat with the drinking water is it looked to me like the multiple investigations in 2019, 20, and 23 show that groundwater at the lagoon, it flows east towards the Nemo Channel River, not towards the Rainy Well system. And I looked at that for the phase IB report and the RF final phase. Is that your recollection as well, or?
The groundwater flows east, rainy wells do pick up surface water flows. They're considered what they call surface water under groundwater influence. Or groundwater wells under surface water influence.
You did see that part though, right? In those two reports that I'm referring to, like.
I think so, yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that.
The groundwater, the lagoon side will flow east towards the river. Yes.
One of the problems with the groundwater, at least in the Moore Forster, it shows the groundwater flowing evenly through the whole length of the lagoon out to the Norman Channel. When you look at the slot where you've got 283 foot of sand in one place and basalt in the other, the picture of that groundwater flow is suspicious. Because water may flow through the sand well, but it doesn't flow through the basalt. And there's a number of layers of basalt around here. For some reason, when God started dumping liquid basalt that started in Idaho, he ended up having a number of different layers of different types of basalt in this area. Some are porous, some are not. I mean, it's a geologist fun time because it's a whole lot of differences.
Okay, and then I just want to make sure I have the data right on the Rainy collector wells. So that's approximately 2 miles north, right?
A little, yeah, I was about 1.5 miles maybe from the actual discharge point, but yeah, it's Dalton Lake. Still right at the border of Columbia City and St. Helens.
Okay, and then regarding the PFAS or the fire department, was that ever followed up on?
Haven't had a chance to follow that up. Although I think Sharon and Mohammed may have known about that as well.
So we need to have that at the next meeting.
And I guess the big question again, maybe that the city would be benefited by that money that we received through those grants. Do we have to use it for what we said we were going to use it for? Or can we modify that and say, hey, you know what? Maybe the landfill is not that great. Let's take that $400,000 and put it towards some other avenue to, see what our cleanup is going to take.
I wanted to ask that question too, like, and this, John, this is a question for you to follow up. So on the budget, I had 863,000 and I showed that we had approximately 15,000 in federal dollars left. Is that same accurate or?
Yeah,
Because we're talking about they're mentioning 400,000 and I'm tripped up on these.
I might have been wrong with one, might have been the 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
there was about 1.4 million in this last round of funding, and part of that was FEMA money, part of that was a congressional direct appropriation. And those were targeted funds to go towards the evaluating the stability of the berm.
Okay.
And so this, whatever scope of work, we have to amend the scope of work to do something
Gotcha.
with that.
Because I think we've still determined that the berm is not up to snuff.
The portion of the berm that's kind of shifted our focus to more of a resilience lens.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to like dominate all the questions here, so jump in. And I just also wanted to be clear that DEQ doesn't permit the hazardous waste. So we want to talk about contaminated.
DEQ would permit hazardous waste, but at a different type of facility.
Correct.
Yes,
So
yes.
I just want to be careful when we're saying that hazardous waste, that we're talking about
Right.
contaminated sediments. Good. And I know this is a really stupid question and maybe somebody on council can hear, but how did this originally start? Was this an income generating? I mean, I put some numbers to it, with the 2 scenarios and it's approximately like $1 million every year to the general fund is what I came up with, but I don't even know how we actually, how we got here in the first place. If somebody could help me out with that, that'd be great.
I might probably have the most history with.
Okay.
I could So back when we were first looking at the Veneer property, some of the developers that came out and looked, they were pretty turned off by the fact that we had a lagoon right there. And concerns about odor and things of that nature. And our consultant said, well, maybe what if we filled it in? What would that look like? And it was just kind of an open question and started evaluating that. And it has to, the narrative has always been, can this be done safely? Can we fill the lagoon with something revenue positive that doesn't negatively impact the community, that creates enough revenue to perhaps pay for a relocated facility, wastewater treatment facility and additional money to redevelop the property? That's just been the common theme throughout this exploration here.
Could it, if there was any type of landfill, could it be moved up past the 100-year flood? Like,
You can, yeah, they'll put permit landfills typically way above 100-year flood line. Yeah,
I mean, I wrote it like some additional like scenarios here. So we have status quo, we don't do anything, right? We can leave the lagoon as it is and continue to maintain it. And then we have the wastewater lagoon that has limited use. We can close and cap potentially, right? Is that an option on this one? We could close and cap that whole area. They'll get rid of it and relocate the wastewater treatment plant. We could do that. And then we could also have a reuse where we could talk about doing something like you guys express, like marine expansion, recreation, some type of space in that place. Or we could do a hybrid approach of some, but we clearly have to come up with some plan going forward, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're losing the window on the landfill. Now, again, maybe it'll be a landfill for 40, 50, 60 years before we fill it and turn it into a soccer field. You know, some of the drawings show housing on it. I suggest that is not the way to go. And again, to make it a structurally sound location, I don't think we're going to be able to do that in a cost-effective manner. To build something on it, but everybody says we can do it, and you can for a cost, a huge cost, but it will always remain contaminated sediments in a geologically unstable location above our drinking water source.
One of the things that you don't see, but it's happening, you can see it in some ways when you look at the area around the Scappoose kayaking place. The river comes in and it stops a minute and it has a certain amount of suspended sediment in it. When it stops, that sediment drops out, and if you've watched the ground around Scappoose kayaking place, you see the island at low tides getting bigger and bigger. The other thing that happens is the water that enters the ground underneath our veneer plant in this, it's certain level of contamination that the Columbia River brings in on high tide. When it leaves the area, a lot of that contamination is left in the ground. So the ground is getting more and more contaminated by what the river has every tide. And this was picked up pretty quickly up in Portland when they were looking at what are we gonna do on Swan Island? Because there they did a number of measurements, because the shipbuilding, contaminated water goes into the soil, raises the groundwater level in a high tide, and as the tide goes down, some of that sediment stays in there. So this is a dynamic situation. Whenever you're planning something, you've got to understand it isn't done, finished. It's always changing. Which way is it changing?
Okay.
This is a weird piece of geology out there.
And then you guys talked about the big one, so any earthquakes. So would you agree with my understanding that the north area can be likely reused with little to no ground improvement? The south area would need engineered ground improvements, and then the central area that was already determined the phase IB report and the market analysis that it would not be suitable for new fill capacity. Would you agree with
Yep.
really that?
And there was some talk about, and this was in the newspaper article today, when the big one comes, you're gonna have to worry about your water lines and everything else. This is a lot more mobile, and I think this is gonna end up in the Multnomah Channel, the first half of the shade.
We have one more minute. So again, this is the first of another, at least a couple meetings. So appreciate you guys being here and putting this presentation together for us. I want to make sure that my fellow council members up here don't have any additional questions.
Got a lot.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions too.
We'll work on it.
Yeah. Councilor Scarpini, would it be agreeable that we put together some additional questions that we might have for you guys, and then we will take our questions and then get back to you guys on another presentation?
Again, my thought was we were here to ask you questions. So we're by no means subject matter experts, whatever, and that's what I've been doing a lot of, this is sort of my thing. I follow it. And you got a lot of other things to read, but yes, I like the idea of a working relationship, and yes, let's continue to talk and ask questions and explore options.
I think you've brought up a lot of thought-provoking questions, and this is a big decision that's gonna be in front of council. It has been in front of council, and so you have brought a lot of things to us that we're gonna be follow up and asking questions, and we want to make sure that we're transparent and share that with you guys as well. That's kind of what my whole point was, is to continue this public dialogue so that everybody is informed with all the information. Because again, there might be stuff that you guys presented that we have answers. to.
Right, yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that you guys are purview to, that a lot of this real estate stuff, this was all done behind closed doors in executive session.
We don't.
So when I found out about that Willamette Concrete through a newspaper article. And that's why I said, you guys, I think, should have known about that stuff way ahead of the time. So, yes,
We appreciate you being here. We are very much engaged in this and want to continue the dialogue and have these.
thank you. We'll let you get on with the rest of the meeting. We do appreciate your time. Thank you.
This public forum is now closed at 6:56 PM.
I'm talking the clock, that actually, does that? look-
Oh, yeah, the clock itself is,
It is working or not?
it's not, but the bell is.
Right, today is Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. The time is now 7 p.m. and I'm going to call this council regular session to order. Would you please join me for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, so we have first on our agenda item is a proclamation. And this proclamation is for keeping the lights on after school. It is October 23rd, 2025. And I'm gonna go ahead and read this. So whereas the citizens of the city of St. Helens stand firmly committed to quality after-school programs and opportunities because they provide a safe and engaging learning experience that helps children realize their full potential and support their academic growth and well-being. Support working families by ensuring that their children are safe and productive when they are out of the classrooms. Help address key issues in our state, such as school absenteeism, learning loss recovery, and workforce development. Build stronger communities by involving students, parents, businesses, and volunteers in the lives of young people. After school provides a solid return on investment. Every $1 invested in after-school program saves at least $3 by increasing kids' earning potential, improving kids' performance at school, and reducing crime and juvenile delinquency. Whereas after-school programs provide critical support for the children and youth, offering them new experiences and opportunities, along with hands-on learning that help them learn and grow. Youth who attend after-school programs attend school more often, do better in school, and gain more important work and life skills. These supports are all the more important. These supports are all the more important today. Whereas the city of St. Helens Recreation Program is committed to the education and well-being of our youth and recognizes the quality after-school programs to prepare our children to become successful adults and help our city thrive. Whereas Lights On After School, the national celebration of after-school programs held this year on October 23rd, 2025, promotes the importance of quality after-school programs for our children, families, and communities. Whereas the demand for after-school programs continues to grow. For every child in a program, 4 are waiting to get in. Whereas many after-school programs facing operating challenges so severe that they are forced to consider closing their doors and turning off their lights. Whereas the state of Oregon is committed to providing expanded learning opportunities that help our children grow, learn, and develop the skills essential for success in life and work. Now, therefore, I, Jennifer Massey, the mayor of the city of St. Helens, do hereby proclaim October 23rd, 2025 as Lights On After School Day, and enthusiastically endorse Lights On After School and committing to our state to engage innovative after-school programs and activities that ensure that the lights stay on and the doors stay open for all children after school. In witness, I thereunto set my hand on the cause of the seal of the city of St. Helens to be affixed to the city of City Hall on this first day of October 2025. It's been a long day. So this is an awesome program. Super happy with our rec center and providing so many opportunities for our youth. So. You want to? You want to do it with council? Okay. And we're doing picture day today, but.
Them either.
Hi, do you
Thank
want,
you,
you want us to
fine.
all come down again?
Yes.
We
please,
won't mess
please.
up the things. Again.
Okay.
Is this one just enough? Is that okay? Or do you want the whole? That's fine.
Then the Russell. No, you
Don't
got it.
mess with the name tags.
I'm good.
It's not August, it's October, by the way.
Does it say August on there?
No, I said August.
Oh, okay.
I'll label this one.
And then they proofread it, so.
Different today.
Next up.
Or shift a little bit. So we're more.
Just move the camera.
Okay. Me.
Thank you, guys.
Let's do that.
Oh, no. No, I don't know.
That's right.
Right.
Kind of dumb.
I'm sorry, we didn't fix it. I apologize. We mess it up every time. All right. That's awesome. All right, so now is the time for visitor comments. The visitor comment period is an essential part of local government meetings. Please address your comments to the mayor and city council members. The city council will take all input in consideration. Please limit your time share to 3 minutes or less. In observance of Oregon open meeting laws, this isn't a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you. Responses to visitor comment, if needed, will be published in the next city council regular session packet. Please provide contact information on the sign-in sheet in the back of the room in case they need to get a hold of you for any clarification on your comments. And when you come up, say your name for the record. So first person, come on up.
So, first time I've done this with you guys, so I am wanting to share that we have a new
Wait,
local.
sorry, can you state your name for the record?
Chanel Adams from Columbia Sexual Assault Response Network. So I have started a new local nonprofit to help with sexual assault response here in Columbia County. Our mission is to deliver timely sexual assault medical exams, empower community through prevention, education, and strengthen a network of support services that prioritize survivor safety, dignity, and long-term healing. We envision a future where every survivor is protected, heard, and supported without barriers, without delay. So with that being said, we are working on with the Money Center, partnering with them. They already do the service for the youth in our community, and I'm at this time in Columbia County, there is no sexual assault response for adults. If there is a rape and they need to have a rape kit done, they go out of county all the way to Portland and wait in the ER, which since they're not technically injured, they get triaged. And as an advocate, I have literally sat in that ER for over 6 hours to 10 hours with a survivor waiting for a nurse to get that evidence to our law enforcement to be able to get justice. The other barrier is maybe going to Longview when there's jurisdiction crossing the state lines. So at this point, we're trying to make something more informed and available for our local community. And it's in the works. I have a full board. I just wanted to let the city know about it and to get your guys' support on it. Also, I wanted to mention that it is October, so it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That has been claimed not for many years, for running nationally. So I wanted to give some statistics about sexual assault and domestic violence. So doesn't discriminate. You know, every 74 seconds, someone in the US is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that someone is a child. 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. 5,900 sexual assault against Indigenous Americans yearly. 1 in 5 women in the United States experience completed or attempted rape during their lifetime. 1 in 3 women and about 1 in 9 men experience sexual harassment in a public place. About 1 in 9 men were made to penetrate someone during their lifetime, usually as a minor. So there's one thing, everyone can do one thing, right? Mine is my voice as a survivor, an advocate, and family of survivors that have lost their voice or struggling to find their voice. That's, you're gonna hear mine all over the place screaming about safety. And so that's my one thing. And so I'm asking you guys to find your one thing to support survivors. And I do have a proclamation that I would like to present to you guys that you guys can maybe put on the agenda for a later time or whatever, but so can I. I copied it from another county, a city, so you guys can feel free to do whatever you want with it, but I would like to have it proclamation made for it to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October 2025 for the city of St. Helens. So, thank you. Great, thanks.
Next comment.
Brady Brigham. I found your public forum was very informative, except that you didn't actually have any public input. So I think if you have a public forum, you should have allowed time for public input. The one thing that I would like to clarify, which you kind of dance around, is that anything that you do to fill in the lagoon would require us to have a new wastewater treatment plant. And the costs for a wastewater treatment plant, from what I've understood from our wastewater, is $170 million. So any income that we would see about becoming a site to store toxic waste from Portland would be offset by the cost of building a new wastewater treatment plant. But then I want to talk a little bit about Halloween Town. This was the first weekend I attended it. Contrary to the spin from the city and Treadway, it is a very diminished asset. And it's very disappointing to see what has become of it. There are multiple city assets, or probably they belong to E2C, but regardless, they're assets that were purchased for Halloween Town that are not being utilized, such as the Etke, which is a six-figure asset that is just covered with a cloth. The train, which has been broken now for 2 years and is not being used. The tourism boat, which again is another six-figure asset that's not being used. This is not leveling up. The haunted house is was marked as be one of the 3 best haunted houses in the country. And it's a fraction of that now. The majority of the items within the haunted house no longer function. So it went from a premier haunted house to pretty bad haunted house. And then the question is where did those assets go? There are multiple things that were in the haunted house that are now gone. Where are they? Have they been disposed of? Did they just not know how to use them? There were some positive things. I think that the new store that they put in, the gift store, looks really great. But it's the cost of having a good haunted house. So I don't know, maybe that will make us more money or not, but I'd rather have a better haunted house than a gift store. So I think it's time that the city recognizes that this has not been successful, and hopefully you will hold them accountable.
Comment? Have anybody online? All right. That moves us into item approve or authorize for signature the First Amendment to agreement with the Columbia Pacific Economic Development District for the grant administration for the sanitary sewer capacity improvement project. That is a mouthful.
I will make a motion to approve and or authorize for signature, line item of 2. First Amendment to the agreement with Columbia Pacific Economic Development District for grant administration of the sanitary sewer capacity improvement project.
Second.
There we have a motion. We have a second. Counselor Sundin. Counselor Hubbard. Counselor Gunderson.
Aye.
And I as well. We have the ratify agreement with Donovan Enterprises for utility rate study.
Motion to ratify the agreement with Donovan Enterprises.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yep. Thank you.
We did this in what, 22? We had them do.
Yeah, it's something we do every 5 years.
We do it every
Update
5 years.
Update our rates, yeah. We can
What
forecast
does that
revenues.
tell us to do? These guys,
What does Donovan do?
sets the rates.
He analyzes our income and expense and growth and capital projects and puts that all into formulas that including DC revenues and things of that nature. And models that out, and rather than coming along and having surprises, we try to build the rates up to pay for the capital projects. Ongoing expenses for operations and things. And he's gonna be here next meeting on October 15th to do a presentation on this.
So how come we're doing it now if he's gonna be here for a meeting?
It was an amount that we do regularly. It's an amount within my signature authority. As a matter of policy, I like to run all agreements to council, so you see them all.
So this is, so that the few things I had was on the cost control to make sure that they stay within the $29,350 cap. That was something I had a note on, so that's something that I didn't notice that in the document, that there's the cap there, so
That hasn't been an issue in the previous efforts over the years. So
in the last how many years that we haven't had an issue with that?
I guess twice, so this would be the third time.
Okay, and then I had the rate models depend heavily on accurate city financials and customer billing, so that's, I think, what you just spoke to. And then, also, are they tasked with evaluating whether this to keep stormwater costs and sewer rates or create separate stormwater utility? Is that something that?
Storm is one of the enterprises that is evaluated, yes.
And this is in compliance with DEQ SRF loans, right? So this is this is in compliance with that, right?
Yes, we've hit our current model is expiring and then setting up DEQ funding for these projects and they just don't have the information yet. So it's negative and we need to update it.
So what's he giving us a presentation on next? Like, what's the presentation gonna be? Like, we're ratifying this agreement, which sounds like it's standard, but what's the presentation gonna be
It'll
on?
be a 5-year look at the utility rates. Yeah. And SDCs.
Seems like this would make more sense to do this after we have our presentation. Is this, I mean, I feel like we're doing the chicken before the egg here.
Well, a little bit is tied to this wastewater treatment plant or the capacity upgrade project and the funding for that. That's why we can have expedited this to front of you sooner.
Got it. I don't really see anything else with that. Well, we have a motion, we have a second on this. Do we have any other further discussion on it?
Let's see what we're paying for. I don't really understand.
There's a whole report that goes with it.
After the fact of letting the contract.
We can show you the previous reports if you want to see that.
I think for me, like, unless this is a time is of the essence, like, I would rather see the report and get the presentation and then I just feel like,
I think that's what John said. He needs the numbers from this report.
That this
Oh.
this creates the report. The funding creates the report for
Oh.
the presentation.
gotcha, okay, that makes more sense. Because otherwise it would not make sense. We were just signing that, okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Counselor Hubbard, do you have anything else?
Not really. I think it's, the specialized. Is he specialized
He's
in?
very
this?
specialized in this. He does. There's only a couple firms in the state that really do this work at the level that he does.
Well, it's under our threshold anyway, but I would like all the information that goes along with it so that we could speak intelligently to it and have all the information. So, and if going forward too, it would be helpful because like I haven't seen this before. I didn't actually get enough time to do the research on the past ones, but it would be helpful if we could council could get ahead of time past like information on these, so it help us and we won't have to ask so many questions. We'll already know really what it's about. So if we can do that going forward, that would be great.
Isn't that kind of in the report?
But I haven't seen a report.
No, I mean,
Yeah, it's a once in 5 years. We do
so
this.
it's past rates, current rates and forecasted.
Right.
So maybe like the last one, like from 5 years ago.
But there's inputs and all the capital project updates, council goals.
Okay.
All of that.
So going forward, we'll get a report if we have them, so we have information. Counselor Sunday.
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard. Counselor Gunderson.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. All right. We have agreement with St. Helens Marina LLC for Harbor Master Services, monitoring enforcement of local ordinance of the city docks and waterways.
Motion to approve the agreement with St. Helens Burial LLC for Harbor Master Services.
Discussion.
Okay. So go ahead.
Oh, if you got something, go ahead. I was just gonna want some clarification.
Well, I,
What we're paying for.
yeah, that's it. That's some of the questions I have. We can start there is what exactly are we paying for with this?
Is that the city docks?
Yeah, this is a
Oh,
renewal for being the harbor master for.
Nothing to do with Sand
the
Island.
City docks, just the docks on Sand Island.
The docks at Sand Island also, okay. And when you say waterways, is that,
That's the pilings and infrastructure, if there's things that are tied to poles, and they can pursue those.
So basically, the whole premise, when you say enforcement, that it's confusing because it kind of sounds like law enforcement. But what we're talking about here, correct me if I'm wrong, is just enforcing city ordinance. So the individual that has this contract can actually enforce whether there's like slip issues or dock issues or stuff like that based on our city code. And then it's turned over to the city where any type of violations are then addressed by the city of St. Helens. Is that correct?
They are checking the docks daily, monitoring, making sure the people that are paying and if there's, a derelict or something like that, they can work through that process as well.
Okay, so unless it goes into a criminal, then we're not talking about enforcement as in law enforcement.
Correct.
Okay, and the fines are paid to the city of St. Helens, correct?
Correct.
Is the last have we done another contract with him? Is that from the resolution 3285? Was I looking up the right one for city code 8.28? Have we done one?
This is a renewal of the
Of that one?
agreement, yeah.
Okay. And also I did not find, and it could just be my error, I did not find the fee schedule adopted in our universal fee schedule for the city. Is it not housed there?
Their charge for service is in the appendix. Where the summer rate and the winter rate, it's more in the summer, it's more activity in the summer and less in the winter.
Okay, so that's where all of their fees are.
Yeah.
Okay. It's winter and summer. Okay, I could not find them and that makes sense. So that's my error. Okay, and then, how come there's no bidding process on this? How come we're just renewing this contract and it's not going out for bid?
We checked with Ashley and just asked if it could be renewed for the efficiency and the St. Helens Marina having people on staff and able to respond with boats, and it's worked out really well over the past year. We're just recommending renewing it.
And this is the second time we would renew it, right?
Correct.
Claire? Are we assuring accountability on this? Like, how do we ensure that how do we ensure that this contract that we're signing and what we're paying is being done? How are we managing this for accountability?
Suppose there's various measures. It's kind of, I didn't expect that question, but
All right.
one
Surprise.
is observations of the docks, are we having problems on the docks? Are people, we're seeing revenue from the kiosk there that helps offset the cost of this work. Happy boaters.
So is there like a matrix we're using or how are we evaluating to make sure there's an ROI on that terminal, like that this all makes sense? On the spot,
No,
just
if
curious.
you'd like to see a financial report related to the Ventec, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'd like to see them. Yeah, for sure. I mean, would you guys like to see it at all?
This,
I like to see it, but.
it's interesting, but it's correlation wasn't really tied together.
I think my only issue is it feels like we just keep like, as I'm up here, I get it, understand the fluidity and making sure that everything is staying status quo, but also like I'm all about RFPs and making sure that we are, allowing for opportunities for other entities because we are a government body here. And so the constant renewal of contracts without going out for RFTs. I know they're more work, but I think that's becoming more problematic for me. So maybe that's something, a future council discussion on, you know, how we actually evaluate that on our contractors, and are we giving equal opportunity for other people within this, you know, city that, or county that have the ability to perform these functions. Nothing against this one particularly at all, just in general. I think we seem to be doing that quite often. So I'd like to see us get better at that, or at least have further discussion. So for what it's worth, I don't know how you guys agree or feel about that.
I'm just gonna ask, is this the position currently filled mainly by Tony?
Most part, yeah.
And I have met with her on several occasions and I kind of think it would be a good idea maybe to have her come in sometime and give a little presentation on what she does and what that includes. The last time we met, it was she said most people that she talks to and asks to leave or whatever she asks them to do, most people are pretty good about it, but there are a few occasions where that doesn't happen and somebody says, no, I'm not leaving. So Chief Smith and I met with her to talk about options and that process looks like once it escalates. So I think it would be good to have her come in and answer any questions that we might have for her.
That's a great idea. I think it's great for like any of these continual contracts that we have, because we should be asking also, like in her case specifically, what can we do as a council or city to help in any way or shape, you know, any facet for her as well.
Just the little that I've interacted with her and seen her in action down there on the docks. I've been very pleased with her knowledge and she's a go-getter.
Yeah. Again, this had nothing to do with like her or anybody. I'm just talking about in general. It just feels like we are just constantly renewing contracts without allowing other opportunities for people to participate. So wasn't directed at this particular contract. We're just talking about this one right now. So. Right, well, we have any other discussion?
No, I think that, you know, the existing Tony's runs a.
Type ship, a type doc?
Yeah, a dock. Whatever they call it. No, I mean, you know, as far as them being getting the contract, I think they do a good job. There is some repair that needs to be done. They don't do the repairs. They hand that out to contractors that we have to pay for the repairs.
We have reimbursed for some repairs, yes.
And then the state of Oregon Marine Board.
And Marine Board occasionally kicks in some funding too. We had a situation where the cross dock was, the holes were broken and was being held together by come along. Somebody just needed to repair it right away.
Yeah.
Risk of leaking.
Yeah, over on the island docks, there's a angled piece that's fallen into the river and then they've got flag tape on that and it needs to be taken care of. It's for the city, so.
We own that kiosk, right?
Oh, I guess your oversee, you know, your question about overseeing their work and that sort of stuff is, should there be a review? You know, I don't know.
I think that like, we don't want to, it's not our job to micromanage any contractor within the city, but it's just like hearing how things are going, or in fact, like, you know, should we just be constantly renewing them is I guess my point, without like,
Why
they
don't we,
come across to us and paper and then
why don't we add to this that we'll get a quarterly report from the harbor master? And that sort of tells us the whole story of what's going on and, you know, the good, bad and the ugly.
does that have to do an addendum in the contractual agreement?
I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. I don't know if quarterly has a cadence as other departments are yearly, but or we could have them come in next week when they're here talking about Sand Island if you want.
Yeah, I just think that checking in, and I think that's at least a good start. All right. Anybody else have anything? All right. Counselor, we have a motion. We have a second. Counselor Sundin.
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard. Counselor Gunderson.
Aye.
And I will be an aye as well. All right, so we have a consent agenda for acceptance, Parks and Trails Commission minutes dated August 11th, 2025.
Make a motion to accept the Parks and Trails Commission minutes.
All second.
Okay, we have a motion second, Counselor Sundin.
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard,
Aye.
Counselor Gunderson.
Aye.
I as well. We have consent agenda for approval. So number 6, accounts payable bill list.
I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable list.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, Counselor Sundin.
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard.
Aye.
Counselor Gunderson.
Aye.
And I as well. We did not have a work session today, so we have no items to address. Do we have any councilor member reports for today? Any history lessons?
I should say you were mentioning the clock earlier, so
Wow, look at that.
Ah,
fun fact, the courthouse was completed in 1907. They didn't purchase the clock for another 3 or 4 years, so at the time the newspaper donated the names and the amount of everybody that donated towards the clock. But for the first few years, the clock didn't matter what time you were in St. Helens, it was 9:15. So they had the hands were painted on, so yeah, there's your fact for the night.
thank you.
It's still at that right now.
Might be under there, I don't know.
I don't have anything. I came down. The gift shop and the remodel haunted house, that looked good. Haven't been down there for the festivities, but probably this weekend.
And I'm getting set up with the proper equipment to follow the police station meetings, which are many, so I will, don't have anything to report right now, but I'll be bringing you up to date on whatever I hear.
Excellent. That's due diligence is done August 24th, correct?
16 on my calendar.
On 16th?
Yeah.
Well, that's better than what I had on my calendar. So, all right, so October 16th. When you're looking at prints, you
I
need.
can't follow meetings of this thing. Sorry.
Don't you have an iPad?
No.
You can't look at prints on an iPad. All right, so,
Sensitive.
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm gonna look forward to those reports and then see. All right, Gunderson, you already gave yours.
I kind of went out.
Yeah, you kind of went out of order, it's fine. So I don't have very much today. I just want to say thank you to Kathy and Lisa as always. They do so much behind the scenes, stuff I never even had any idea before I sat in this chair. And they really are an essential backbone here in the city. And so I want to say thank you always, and also our city employees that constantly, are doing the very best they can and pretty lean already for what they do. And now I have additional insight on that. And so it's pretty humbling. And John, also, thank you to you for being so responsive on all the questions that I have as well. So I ask a lot of questions and I appreciate that. I'm excited about the police station now on the 16th for that due diligence. I want to see that report. Excited about that. And then also the mayor's conference. So that starts I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow and let's see, Friday. So excited to meet with the other mayors and see what they have going on in their cities. There's a lot of commonalities that we have in St. Helens that they're also facing in their cities. So it's nice to see what perspectives they bring to the table. And we gotta start planning for that 250th. So that's we are behind the ball on that one as well. I also want to thank you to Art and Steve for coming in and giving a presentation today. It's the second time I was able to sit down with you guys and listen to the presentation. I have a lot of questions and things that I'm going to be following up, and I'm glad that we've had an opportunity to bring this to the forefront so that we can continue to discuss it in the open and figure out what's the best path for the city of St. Helens and our citizens here. So I want to say thank you to them. And otherwise, I don't have anything else.